All right, let's get started. This webinar is being recorded. We will put this on MSAC's YouTube channel if you want to refer back to it. We will also have these slides available on our website as a PDF document. Probably we'll get this posted early next week. So welcome everybody. My name is Liesl Fenner and I am the Public Art Program Director at the Maryland State Arts Council. And I'm joined by our Special Projects Assistant, Rosa Chang. You might wave Rosa and let everyone know she's going to be managing the chat box and helping us out here today. So many of you might remember Ryan Patterson. He is no longer managing the grants part of our program. He's working on public art commission projects. So all your questions will be coming to me this year if you're applying for this grant. All right, let's get started. So in case you're not familiar with Google Meet, these are some of the features. You can unmute the mic button that's on the left. Feel free to raise your hand, although we'd like to reserve questions after we complete the new artwork section, and then we're going to discuss the conservation grants. And so that's the raise hand feature. Then don't hit the red button or you'll find yourself out of the meeting, but we'll certainly have you, you can join back again. And the chat box is that little symbol down on the lower right, if you want to keep that up. And you can also submit questions through the chat box. So we start off all our public meetings with our land acknowledgement statement, which is a project of the Maryland State Arts Council, and we have this information on our website if you're interested. We acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Accohannock Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Choptico Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanticoke Tribe, Nasse-Wawash Band of Indians, Piscataway Cono Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Okomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Youghiogheny River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them can be fully restored. And our equity and justice statement: the arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. And our vision: the Maryland State Arts Council plays an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And our mission: we advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. So our goals, I'll just highlight the brief. Goal 1, increase participation. Goal 2, provide intentional support. Goal 3, build capacity. Goal 4, leverage connections. And Goal 5, bolster Maryland arts. And we always share our creative meeting actions at the beginning, and we celebrate being in the space with one another as creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, Acknowledge that together we know a lot. Enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry. Share your idea and trust that it will be heard. Use I statements. Focus your language on the task at hand, and hold one another accountable with care. Apply yes and. I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it. And balance speaking and listening. So our agenda today is we're going to share what public art is. We're going to talk about different project grants that we have available at MSAC, and then we're going to focus first on the new artworks grant application, then take Q&A, and then the conservation grant application, and then Q&A. And as I mentioned, these slides and the recording link will be on our website next week. So this is MSAC's definition of public art, art that is created intentionally for a place and space in the public realm, regardless of whether it is situated on public or private property. It can be located indoors or outdoors. The public art must be free and accessible to everyone. Public art can include expressions of community values or enhancements to an environment, can raise awareness of an unseen narrative. Public art supported by MSAC grants must have a physical presence and a lasting impact on the place and community where it is installed. And we use this as a guide as you're starting to develop your project ideas. Some ideas that come forward that we discuss perhaps before your grant application may not quite fall within this grant application, and we can refer you to one of our other programs for support. But we use this as a guide. So this is a chart of the different project grants, and many of you might have heard of our creativity grant. This can support an art project, an event, or an activity, and both artists and organizations can apply for up to $4,000. And this is, these applications are reviewed monthly, so it's very flexible for projects that are coming up very soon. It's also a great grant entry point if you've never applied for a grant, or if you haven't done public art before. Maybe a creativity grant might be your first route. The new artworks grant, we have some changes this year. The planning grant is open to artists and organizations to apply. And the project grant, we had to go back down in our grant amount because last year we had a whopping $50,000 we were awarding, but that was arts relief funding from COVID. And we no longer have that money. So we're at $30,000 in project grant awards this year. And those are for organizations only. If you are an artist interested in a project grant, we suggest that you partner with a community organization or entity that can apply with you. And we'll go more into that in detail. And then there's our conservation grant. And these are only open to organizations. Noticing a small error in that our conservation project grant has actually been reduced to $30,000. It is no longer $50,000. So I'm just stating that for the record. It is correct in our guidelines online. We have only one grant deadline this year for all PAAM grants. It's January 26th. 2024. So there's plenty of time to plan and get your grant submitted. We have moved to a one deadline per year due to staff capacity at MSAC. So as I mentioned, we have the guidelines on our website under the public art tab under programs. We ask you to apply online on Smart Simple and set up an account now if you don't have a prior account set up, and look at the new grant application for FY24, the specific grant that you'll be applying for. As you start to go around Smart Simple, always remember to hit save. It's easy if you start entering information to lose what you've written. So save is at the bottom of each page. Starting new this fiscal year, we're going to be offering public art PAAM grant office hours. And I'll be hosting in a time noon to 1 on the second Thursday of every month for taking your questions. And these are the dates listed under number 3. You can register just like you did for this webinar at the Eventbrite site. And each webinar, each hour, I will start with some slides with a little extra advice and recommendations for applying. And our first office hours, October 12th, I'll be talking about artist selection processes. So if you've never selected an artist before, that's definitely the one to attend. So again, there's only one application this year. The deadline, it's January 26th, 2024. So let's jump into the new Artworks grant. We're going to be showing images of artworks that have been the awardees of PAAM grants in previous years. So we have some bright and colorful photographs. We are pleased to get around the state from Baltimore City out to Southern Maryland, Eastern Maryland. Both 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional works are can be supported in all different types of media, as you can see from the creative work that's highlighted here. So we have 2 types of new Artworks grants. There is the planning grant, which we award up to $10,000. And again, this is for either artists or organizations to develop a public art project idea and a proposal with communities. All right. The project grant, after you've planned your project and you have your drawings, you have your artist selected, you can apply for a project grant, which are up to $30,000. Again, only an organization can apply. This is for the fabrication and installation and dedication of the new artwork. And all projects must have come through a community process. Again, the artist partners with that community organization, and they are listed as a partner on the project. So which grant do you apply for? You're probably ready to go and jump in and let's get the materials together. So answer some of these questions for me. Has the community been involved in the development of the project? Is the artist selected? Is there a nonprofit organization? Is the location for the artwork selected? You may have an idea, but perhaps you don't know where it's going to be. Is the public artwork fully designed, including detailed drawings? We really emphasize that all the details have to be worked out at the time of the project grant application. Do you have written permission to install the artwork? All grant submission, project grant submissions must have written permission. And you have someone who's going to be taking care of the maintenance, an organization or an entity. If you have any no responses to any of these questions, then you should apply for a planning grant. So the planning grant supports the fees, let's say, for an organization, issuing a call to artists to select an artist or artists, the community engagement fees for setting up activities, events, anything that you feel is going to be necessary to help develop that public art project idea. The artist fees themselves, and this can also include honorariums for artists developing the design and proposal. And we'll go into a little more on that in a bit. Consultant fees, you may want to hire a public art consultant. You might need an architect to develop drawings or an engineer. Perhaps it's out on a site, you might need a landscape architect. You can also hire someone to create your digital drawings and graphics for your proposal. You might need to rent a facility for your community meetings, or even software fees for administering the artist selection process. So let's go through the application. They're very straightforward questions for the planning grant. Question 1, describe the planning process and the intended goals. And so it's very important in responding to each of these questions that you're very detailed in what you're intending to do. So what are your goals? Describe how the community will be engaged. That does need to be identified, even though we know this is planning and you might not know all the communities that might be involved at the time of application. Those conversations at least should have taken place prior to applying. If the artist is to be selected, then a description of how you plan to select the artist. And as I mentioned, we're going to go in detail on that on the October 12th office hours. Question 2, how are you going to spend the planning grant? And so we have a brand new process this year. If you've applied in the past, you had to upload a budget, and now we have a chart in Smart Simple. It's very straightforward and easy to use. You're going to put in your dates, as you can see on this sample here, of when the activities are taking place. Then you have a pull-down menu under each activity, and you can select from the types of possible planning activities. You can also pick other and put in the notes what that specific activity is for your project. You can just click the plus sign and keep going down and adding as much to your schedule as possible that communicates how the flow of the planning will take place. This is all in Smart Simple. Don't forget to click Save. And question 3, again, we're going to be using a chart, but I just wanted to mention what, again, these what we cover in a planning grant, as I discussed just a little earlier on that previous slide. So the chart, as you can see here in Smart Simple, if you are an artist applying, you have a special category with the red arrow in the middle there for what your proposal design fee would be. And you can also add some detail in the notes. If there's other types of fees or activities, you could click the plus sign and add additional items. Further down, I couldn't squeeze it into this screenshot for this slide, but there are additional expenses if you scroll down when you're in Smart Simple. And it's a very straightforward chart to fill out. Now, if you are an organization applying, your fee goes under that top box. And again, you can use the plus sign if there's other categories of fees that you'll be incurring during the planning process. And again, feel free to fill that out in the notes section. And again, just scroll down and there's other expenses listed in the Smart Simple chart. So let's get to the scoring of how your planning grant is being reviewed. And this is a typical type of rubric that MSAC uses for all of its grants. And as you can see, each question is clearly laid out, and it clearly communicates what an excellent to outstanding response would be. So it would be a clear, specific, and detailed description of the planning process, including evidence of strong community engagement. So the independent panel of panelists will be reviewing your grant and scoring based on this rubric. And as you can see, it flows down to fair to marginal if it's unclear and perhaps you have not engaged the community. So this is your compass as you are developing your grant, and be sure to have someone read your grant before you submit it and have them look at this rubric. And are you meeting the details of the clear, specific, and detailed description that will get you a top score and advance you into final, hopefully, award status. And we'll go into that more later in this webinar. Great question. Thanks for popping that in the chat. So I am actively getting these rubrics up on the website shortly. So tune back in later this month and they will be up on the website. So the project grant, as we mentioned before, only organizations can apply for a project grant. The artist has to be selected and listed as a partner. The location must be confirmed for where that artwork is going. You must have detailed drawings of what that artwork is and how it's going to be installed. The artwork itself should have come through a community process, and you must have written permission to install and implement the artwork. I want to emphasize that if you have a project ready to go, you have your artist selected, or perhaps the artist is in the process of creating drawings right now, you do not have to receive a planning grant in order to apply for a project grant. If you have these ready to go on January 26th, you can bypass the planning grant. And we can talk more about this in a bit as well. So again, the project grant supports the actual implementation, paying the artist, paying a fabricator. Perhaps the artist is not making the work themselves, they're contracting it out. Perhaps a general contractor has to prepare the site or a wall where a mural is going. Anything that's required to design, fabricate, and install the artwork. You might need to rent equipment like a lift or scaffolding, all the artwork materials. And we really appreciate details, not just a lump sum of your artwork materials. If it's a mural, tell us what you're buying. Paint, brushes, rollers, sprayer. If it's a sculpture, perhaps you need transportation to get it to the site where it's going to be installed. All of those little fees add up, and so it's important to document them. We anticipate that you have a lot of time going into the planning of this, and we want to honor both the organizations and the artists and the administration time of doing a public artwork. So we recommend 15 to 20% depending on the type of artwork itself. Don't forget to hire a photographer to come out and photograph your fabulous, beautiful new work, especially at the dedication event. If you have a ribbon cutting, there might be other miscellaneous fees, promotion, marketing, you name it, it can be covered under the project grant. So the project grant is obviously more detailed. This is a lot of money, $30,000, and we need to know how you're going to spend it. So you need to provide a detailed description of the artwork that you're intending to create, including how it's going to be installed and what the material and media are. And so your written description should align with the drawings that you're submitting. You need to tell us how this idea came about. If you didn't apply for a planning grant, we don't have any information. And actually the panelists are new. Perhaps you got a planning grant this past year. We're going to have new panelists this year. They never read your planning grant. They don't know anything about your project. So you need to tell us from the beginning how it was planned with the community. Talk about those activities. If people are coming out to help create the work with the artists, if there's particular, dedication activities with the community, tell us all about it, please. And we do need to know the experience of both the organizational partner and the artist to ensure that the artist has the ability to implement the work. A proposed mural needs to be created by someone who's done murals before. And so we expect this section to, elaborate on the experience of both parties, both in managing a project and the artist executing the project. We need to know your schedule. It's a similar schedule, just like we showed in the planning grant. You have different periods, your start and end date. These are rough. If you don't go exactly by these dates, that's okay. We are not following up on, the exact specific time frame. I will note that you have up to 18 months to execute your project from the time of the award. We know that public art takes time, and we want to honor that time. And then under activity tasks, we have lots of options in the pull down menu. And if we don't have the option listed, there is an other, and you can add what your schedule activity is over in the notes. Again, don't forget to hit save. Same for the budget. We have pull down menus. You just keep hitting the plus sign, and you can keep adding the expenses with detail in the notes, as I mentioned. We know, again, a mural takes brushes and equipment. Tell us what those are. We need to know how the artwork is going to be maintained. Public art does degrade over time, and nothing lasts forever. And someone needs to take care of it, especially in our unfortunate times where things get tagged, and someone needs to come out and take care of it. And so we require an organization to be named as an entity that will be responsible for oversight. Now, your artists can perform the maintenance, but they have to be contracted and paid. We don't just expect an artist to say, sure, I'll maintain my artwork forever, because that's not supporting artists. So it's important that the artwork has an overseer who's committed to maintaining the work. And these are the attachments. Again, we emphasize the details that are needed for drawings. You need to have a location map. Often you'll try to describe where the artwork is, but we need to know where it is, let's say, in a park. So create a Google map. If you're not fully versed in drawings and preparing the proposal, then perhaps, put in that consultant fee for someone to create those drawings. Artists, you'll need to submit a PDF with images of your background work. Again, if you are applying to do a mural, show us some of the murals you've done before. And again, that letter of permission that cites that you can install the artwork. All right, so we've done a lot here, and Rosa and I are going to do a little role playing here for you. Rosa, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Oh, can you speak a little louder?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Rosa, I hear that you want to apply, and great question in the chat. What if you don't have public art background? Rosa, I think this might be your first project.
Yes, very, very first.
So tell me about it.
Yeah, so I have an idea of creating a water sculpture at our community garden.
Great, great. Well, great for sketching this out, this seed of an idea. We're going to need to know more detail, like how tall it is, where it's going in the garden. Why don't you come back and show us a little more information?
Yeah, so this is the idea. See the image of our community garden. So that's the location where I want to install my water sculpture. That look very happy.
And has anybody been involved? Have you been talking to anybody about this idea?
Yeah, I talked to my community farm members we talk about how to we wanted to create something make us happy every time whenever we go to the garden. So we put the smiley face, and also you see that the round shape is called embracement.
All right. Well, I'm still going to need to know those dimensions. The panelists really need to make sure you know how to install this.
Yes, I want this sculpture to be 6 feet high and another 6 feet, wide. And I'm like looking for something like a very solid and waterproof material, because we're gonna use the sculpture to store water, rainwater. So I don't know, like a powder coated metal, or like, I don't know, like cover the wood. I have no idea.
So this is a great example of how I can provide technical assistance to anyone applying. And I provide recommendations back to the potential applicant here. So Rosa, I think you're on a great start. I think that your drawings are going to need to get more detailed and a bit more clear. There's a lot of information that's kind of all over the page and might be confusing to the panelists. So I think that I might recommend that you talk to a fabricator about the fountain, and if they can fabricate it. And often fabricators have drawing services. They will draw it up for you. So that might be a potential option. So just to show some folks of what can come in, this is a artwork design. As you can see, the artist did a Photoshop mock-up of this very large-scale feather that's actually 30 feet tall. His CAD drawings are digital, and he happened to have those design skills for creating it. But again, you could hire someone to create the drawings for your proposal. So this is just one example. So let's take some questions. I think I saw some in the chat.
Lizzo, we have a very first question from Jerry on the chat.
Okay. Box. All right. So actually, let me go back to Susan Lester. So if this is your first project, Susan, definitely submit the work that you have created in the past. And also perhaps you might partner with an artist that has done work in the public realm. We really encourage artists to team up and perhaps work together. It's a great learning opportunity, and we can talk more about how that pairing can happen. Let's see. Maria. Hi, Maria. Does MSAC provide example letters of intent for planning between an artist and organizations, letters of agreement and permission of installation letters? We haven't in the past, but we certainly would be happy to, get on a Google Meet and discuss what that should include, certainly. And actually, you're bringing up a great topic that we should talk about in our office hours. So fantastic. Are project grants exclusive to new nonprofits, or can government-funded organizations? Yes. So in the guidelines, which you should all download after this webinar, they're on our website, lists all the different types of organizations. And yes, we would. I just went to a mural dedication at a elementary school last night, so definitely those are included. C.A. Holmes, you want to unmute? You've raised your hand. It's C.A. Holmes. You might be unmute. You're muted. Okay, well, I'm going to move on to Berlin Main Street. What if the artist is not located in Maryland, but is the best one qualified? So the lead artist on a PAAM grant application must be a Maryland resident. This is taxpayer money and it's coming back to Maryland. If the artist is partnering with a non-Maryland artist, that is fine. All right, is that all the questions? Did I cover everything?
You still have to answer for Jerry's question.
Oh, okay.
Very first one on the chat box, very top.
Oh, sorry. I didn't scroll up. All right, great question about the planning and project grant. You cannot apply for a planning and project grant for the same project at the same deadline. You can apply with a planning grant and a project grant for separate projects. Obviously, there's a logic there. If you haven't planned the project, you can't really come forward with the project grant application at the same time. But if you've got lots of project ideas, we would love to hear it. You cannot receive 2 project grants or 2 planning grants in the same fiscal year. So you really have to prioritize what projects you're advancing that you need funding for. Okay. All right. I think I got all the questions. We are going to jump into the conservation grants, and please stay on because I still have some important information at the end of the webinar. And conservation is actually very important. Yep.
Did you cover the last question from Audra? The under the Berlin?
Oh, great. Audra, could you unmute? And I'm not sure if I understand. Are you asking if there's a grant deadline earlier? There are the creativity grants, which are accepted monthly. Those are up to $4,000 and either artists or organizations can apply. If I've interpreted your question right, but if I haven't, feel free to unmute, Audra.
She's unable to unmute.
Oh, okay. Oh, certainly. With ideas, absolutely. And at the end of this slideshow, I do have my email listed. Actually, you can, Rosa, put my email in the chat. All right, so there are very few arts organizations out there that actually award funding to help take care of our public art. And Maryland State Arts Council is one of the few arts councils that has this type of program. And we are really proud to have been helping conserve artworks that probably look familiar to many folks. These happen to be in Baltimore. The Alexander Calder at the Baltimore Museum of Art, Nut and Bolt up Mount Royal, and of course the beautiful whirligig at the American Visionary Art Museum, AVAM. And so hopefully artworks that you're planning are going to withstand the elements for many, many years, but public art does need attention. And so we have, you know, again, another work by Linda De Palma that was recently repainted. It just looks fabulous now down in the Bromo Seltzer Arts District in Baltimore. Here's the before and after of Nut and Bolt. I mean, that's jaw-dropping, the difference. And can you just imagine the kids coming to school and, you know, how exciting it would be to see that every day. So if there's an artwork in your community and it needs attention, we're here for that. And so I'm going to go into detail of how you can apply. So again, the planning grant is up to $10,000 to support the conservation planning efforts. And typically what can happen is an organization will hire a conservator, a professional conservator who will do an assessment of that artwork or multiple artworks if you have a collection. It can also support digital fees for creating a database of your collection. Many people want to keep data files on works, multiple works in a public art collection. Then our project grant is up to $30,000. And that, again, can not only support the conservation, it can support relocating an artwork. An artwork can come from outside of Maryland, and as long as it's coming to a site in Maryland, we can support that. We expect, again, all of the information for executing that implementation of the project grant is submitted, you know, including who is going to be doing the actual conservation work. So only organizations can apply, and here's the types of organizations. And if you are an artist and you know that one of your artworks needs attention, collaborate with an organization to help get the funding. And you, as the artist, can do the conservation, but it does have to be an organizational partner. So just like our planning grants, we have to have this information to apply for project grant. The conservation professional has to have been hired, or the contractor or the artist. You have to have permission of the overseer or whoever owns the artwork. And it's helpful, again, to have an assessment of that artwork that needs conservation and the scope of work that needs to happen to fully restore it. So if there's any no questions to these checkboxes, apply for a planning grant. All right. So again, you're going to describe the artwork being conserved, why it's being prioritized for conservation. Perhaps you already have a conservator in mind. I will mention that the American Institute of Conservators, AIC, you can look for members of the Conservation Association by state. It does not have to be a Maryland conservator to be conserving your work, but that's helpful for finding somebody. And then, of course, the planning schedule and the planning budget. Very similar to the planning grant, you just use the start and end date tabs, creating your schedule and the chart that we provide in Smart Simple. The pull down menu gives you lots of options, and you can add additional detail in the notes. Then there's the planning grant, which there's the artist fees if the artist is alive and perhaps they're, you know, going to be actively involved in the conservation. Any contracted services. We have a pull down menu for all the different folks that could possibly be, but you can add the detail in the notes. And there's, again, more categories, just like the new artworks grant, that you can add to your budget. We do need to know where that artwork is that you're proposing to conserve. And we need the photos of what it looks like. We see some really disturbing or disappointing artworks that are out there. And we do need to understand the gravity of how much the conservation work is needed. So do take good detail photos of the spots on the artwork. So the project grants, as I mentioned, it can support the conservation and relocating of artwork to Maryland. All the conservation types of activities, you know, such as waxing, painting, replacement of materials, you know, perhaps something might need to be rewelded. Any landscape improvements, maybe there's water flooding the base of a sculpture and the land needs to be regraded. That can be an eligible expense. Perhaps it needs some nice lighting to really highlight this beautiful work out in the public sphere. Perhaps you need more economical electricity and bulbs for the type of lighting that has been out there. Perhaps you need signage. Interpretive signage is wonderful to help educate the community on how valued this artwork is to the community. All right, so we get into the details of the project grant application with the description of what needs to be conserved. And a lot of this could, if you again hire a conservator, you could just extract this from their report. And why it's important to the community, why it's been prioritized. If you have perhaps multiple pieces in a city or your neighborhood that need attention, why is this one prioritized? Again, the scope of work can be straight out of the conservator's report because they should tell you exactly what they're going to be doing. And then who's going to be working on it? And so a roster of the experience and the training that they have in performing the conservation work. All right, again, the schedules are very similar to the planning grant. Pull down menus with different options, and you can keep adding the types of activities just by hitting the plus sign. And the same with the project budget. And you know, do be detailed in your notes about what actually is happening for that type of activity and why it costs what it costs. The attachments, again, we want to see an artwork map of where it's located. A Google map is fine. And again, photos of the work to be conserved. If you didn't apply for a planning grant, again, you don't have to have a planning grant to apply for a project grant. The panel will need to see, you know, what the state of the existing artwork is. And perhaps you might have additional drawings. You may not, but some, again, if you were doing regrading or adding lighting, we'll need to see the drawings for that as well. Just like all the project grants, we need a letter of permission that you can conserve this work and you have permission to do so. I think, oh, we've got the rubric. So again, I want to emphasize the key 3 words are clear, specific, and detailed. For any question on any of our MSAC grants, clear, specific, and detailed. We just embed that with all of the responses, any drawings that you're creating, all of the materials. This is how you will increase your chances of getting a higher score and being awarded a grant. So always look at the scoring rubric before you hit submit. And as I mentioned, I will have all the rubrics up shortly on our website for you to refer to. So this is for all of our PAAM grants, both the new artworks and conservation. We convene a group of panelists. And we put out an open call. We have a call open right now. If you are interested in serving as a panelist for this year's FY24 PAAM grants, we encourage you to apply. This is the place on our website where you can get information. It's due, the application is due October 12th. I'll note that you can apply and also serve as a panelist. You would just not obviously score your own application, and you would not be part of the discussion with the panel when your grant was being scored. So the panelists review all the eligible applications online in Smart Simple. They're utilizing the scoring rubrics. The high scoring applicants that meet a certain percentage threshold advance to round 2. And then round 2, we have a public virtual meeting. Anybody can log in. Visitors must remain on mute. And you can listen to the panel discuss your grant, and you can learn a lot from hearing how they interpreted your application. And they do not necessarily, they do not reveal their individual score, but we do post during the meeting the averaged score from all the panelists. The awards are not made in this public meeting. They're made after, and you'll be notified following if you, well, you get an award letter if you've received or not received a grant. So this year, the notifications will go out in late March, which means on your schedules that your activities can't begin for anything that you are needing the MSAC support for until late March. I will also say that after you sign your grant agreement, it takes another 6 to 8 weeks to receive your check. And so if you need that cash in hand, let's say to pay an artist or to start, if you're starting to incur expenses in your schedule, you might need to push it further into May when you're actually hitting the green light go button on your implementation. I just want to say that you can start your activities before. Perhaps you can front the money. Perhaps you're an organization that has funds that can, you can reimburse the organization when you do indeed receive that check. We consciously made this deadline in January so that folks would be receiving their checks in time for good weather, because spring, summer, and fall is the best season to be implementing public art. All right, so again, the deadline is Friday, January 26th. We have a lot of time to plan. You apply on Smart Simple. As I mentioned, you don't have to apply for a planning grant in order to apply for a project grant. And you cannot have received two planning grants and 2 project grants. So do prioritize your projects and what you're applying for. All right. Be sure to read the guidelines. I know it's a large document. It has a lot of detail, but it's important to read that detail and understand the grant fully. Register for our office hours. Rosa, you want to put this link in the chat? People can sign up. Feel free to reach out to me. Here's my email. If you need help though with Smart Simple, please email our grant staff, and all our staff are listed on our website. These slides, as I mentioned, and the recording will be on the website next week. And we have an additional public art resources section. We have a Public Art 101 if you're new to public art. And here's just some suggested application software platforms. If you do think you're going to be taking artists' applications, these are just some possible ways of conducting that. And I'll be, again, going over that on the October 12th office hours. And I think we have quite a few questions in the chat. I think my next slide was Q&A. So let me get over to that. So conservation art also needs to be a Maryland artist. No, if the artwork is, regardless of who the author of that artwork is, it does not need to be a Maryland conservator. But if the artist is alive, and I'm honest about that, because a lot of the works that are being conserved, the artist is often deceased, and so we're contacting the gallery or the representation or family to get permission to conserve the work. But it can be a non-Maryland artist. If they are alive, they can come back and conserve their work. What if your project costs are more than the largest award amount? So we have a section of the budget for your income. So you should be listing the other grants that you are applying for, other sources of income. Perhaps it's in-kind donations. We do want to know the detail of how you're going to create this artwork and how you're sourcing those additional funds for the project budget, for the project costs. How best can we support the funding needed for staff so there's more money for grants and its administration? Okay, Margaret, I think I'm interpreting grants as in a proposal fee honorarium. Margaret, feel free to unmute if you'd like. I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
Hi, Lisa, it's Margaret. I'm thinking about the fact that the $50,000 that was available previously for work was really, really an excellent amount for the type of project. And if we feel that that should be the amount or more, how do we best advocate for additional funds for you all, and also for additional funds so that you can take grant applications twice a year, for example, instead of once a year?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I don't anticipate a bump in our budget. So there's a way to advocate for MSAC every February with the Maryland Citizens for the Arts when folks meet with their delegates in Annapolis to ensure that MSAC continues at our current or increased budget. But MSAC's budget is, divided among many, many programs. The $50,000 was an absolute anomaly just because of the pandemic relief funding that was left over. So I suggest that if you don't anticipate that for the scale of the project that you're looking at, that you're going to have to look for other funding sources to be able to create that project. But I don't anticipate the grant amount going up. So that's the reality.
Okay, thank you. I just thought that many of us are interested in advocating.
Well, we love your advocacy. That's fantastic. I'll let everybody know that MSAC is going to be starting a strategic planning process. And so we will be having public meetings, and you'll learn about that in our newsletter and our various e-blasts. So we definitely would like your input during the planning, and maybe that can indeed inform, our bottom line and our budget annually. So do stay tuned. Oh, thanks, Emily. Yes, do keep us informed of your projects, and that does help in the advocacy. So we appreciate photos or giving us a call when you have a ribbon cutting. We'd love to try and make it if possible. All right, any other questions? We're just at about 1 o'clock, and so oh, thank you, Kathy. Did I miss? Let me go back up. Are there the recordings of the second round 2 panel discussions? Yes, they should be on our website. If they're not, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to put them up. If you applied for a prior PAAM grant, you are welcome to contact me for feedback. You can submit a feedback form, and we're happy to follow up with how the panel commented on your specific grant, and you can get the score and information. That definitely getting feedback can improve your grant application this year if you're reapplying. I think I answered Allison's about, can an artwork be created here but sent to another part of the globe? No. This is all about sharing this with Maryland audiences. So we're trying to keep the funding right here at home. But great question. Perhaps, if you're applying for a new artworks grant and it's temporary and it's here in Maryland for a period of time and then goes somewhere else, that's a possibility. All right, C.A. Holmes, do you want to unmute? You've raised your hand.
Yes, that was me that requested that. I just wanted to check on the location if it's in the digital world, like if it's a...
No, it has to be a physical artwork.
Yeah.
And it has to meet our MSCC's definition of public art.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And Adrian Holmes, if you might unmute.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. We have 2 public art projects that we're working on at the same time. Is it possible to include both in an application, or would they have to be 2 separate applications?
As long as you would need to apply with one application. It can have 2 projects, but they need to be connected in some way. Of course, they need to meet the budget that you're proposing in your proposal, because as we mentioned, we can only award 30,000.
Okay.
But happy to talk about, bring that project and questions to the office hours.
Oh, sure. It's the Harriet Tubman Take My Hand mural.
Oh, great.
And we just installed the Beacon of Hope Harriet Tubman statue at the courthouse.
Yeah.
So we're trying to improve both those areas kind of at the same time.
Well, yeah. Excellent.
Okay.
Look forward to speaking with you.
Thank you.
All right. One more question from Lillian.
Does the fabricator have to be located in Maryland? I know there's a bunch in Pennsylvania.
Nope. The artist has to be, but not the fabricator.
Not the fabricator. Okay. Thank you.
We understand that there are some fabricators that use certain materials that have expertise that are outside of Maryland, depending on the media and material you're trying to fabricate.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to have to wrap it up. Thank you all for attending today. It's been great presenting our revised guidelines for the FY24 cycle, and we hope you will join us at the office hours, and hope to see a grant application coming from you in January. All right, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.